Hey everyone, I think we're live here. Not sure. Looks like Facebook has uh, created a whole new interface for their live stream. So getting used to that and also trying out some new equipment on my end here to hopefully improve the sound quality of things. So if you happen to tune in here, let me know how it's sounding. This is an experiment that I'm choosing to run. So let me give you a little backdrop. Um, I've been part of a lot of things, but most recently a 21-day meditation challenge um, that my friend Katie DeAndrea invited me to participate in from the Deepak Chopra Center. And one of the practices that we had to do as part of this 21-day challenge was make a list of the things that we'd like to do but have postponed. And so I got to making my list, and a number of the things that I had on that list were play more music, perform music for other people, have a blog or a video blog, or have a podcast, or write a book, or create a documentary, or host a TV show, or a series of some sort. And I started realizing, like, well, I have the capability to do many of these things. So that's what this is. This is me getting present to things that I've said I'd always like to do. But for whatever reason, I've always had an excuse to not do it. Could be work, could be kids, could be whatever. You know, we have all these things in our lives that distract us from what we maybe would rather be doing. And what I'm learning through all of this is that we have choice in the matter. We have this life, and maybe what COVID is bringing to our attention now is something along these lines. You know, we all have choice in the way we're relating to what's happening right now, which is largely out of our control. So, what can we most influence or most control? And that's our way of relating to what's happening. There's actually um, an Indian sage, Jiddu Krishnamurti, in one of his final um, talks, asked his audience. I think it was a couple thousand people that were there. It was in, I believe it was in Ojai, California, and he very quietly posed a question to the listeners, which was, "Would you like to know my secret to happiness?" And an anticipatory silence rose over the crowd, waiting to hear what this sage was going to offer as his as his keys to the kingdom, so to speak. Um, and he simply said, "I don't mind what happens." And so, there's wisdom in that. And so as we look at COVID-19, we have a choice in the way we're relating to it, our view of it, and this comes forward in the work that I do for my life, which is I'm stewarding a conversation with a group of practitioners, teachers, heads of HR, coaches, consultants, um, some private equity people, a whole host of people, really, from my career. We have about 30 people in a conversation right now about what it means to be fully human at work. And I think it's a really appropriate question in our current context, as the very ways that the world is working have been radically disrupted by COVID-19. And so we can either resist that this is happening in our way of relating to it. We can choose to relate to it as if it's happening to us, and that places us in a victim consciousness, where um, we're kind of at the effect of this thing, feel helpless, a lot of complaining, a lot of whining, a lot of fear, maybe blaming. All of that rhetoric generally is not conducive to a healthy state of mind or healthy relationships, whether those relationships exist in a home context or in a work context or in a neighborhood or community context. So, we can relate to what's happening from that way, like it's happening to us, or we can relate to things as though they're happening for us. And either way, whatever we choose to look for, we're more likely to find. So, one of my practices has been to choose to relate to what's happening here in the wake of the COVID-19 virus is how might this be happening for us? And that first requires a particular move, which is really hard. It was hard for me, and I've been on the phone and on Zoom calls with a lot of my friends and coaching clients and colleagues over the last week as we're all trying to adapt to our new circumstances. And there was a metaphor. Where did I hear this? It was offered by Alan Watts. I was listening to a recording of his recently, and he was speaking to the teachings of the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu, and he was speaking to the principle of Wu Wei, which is translated into no forcing or don't force. And it's an invitation to really, as he described metaphorically, sail with the flow of things versus rowing. In rowing, we are apt to have some attachment to how things are going to go or the way things are going to end up. And there's a lot of efforting and struggling can be associated with rowing. This notion of sailing is really working more with what is around us and working with it, working with the wind, working with the currents, and using them in harmony. So another way I've been thinking about this is a shift from a me-centered, narrow view of things with a lot of self-interest associated in it. And that might be like rowing. I am trying to compel the water and the wind to to acquiesce to where I want to drive this thing versus us more in a we context, in a we consciousness. We're working with the other elements. We're working with the wind. We're working with the water and the currents, and we're working with other people. So COVID, I think, is also inviting us to recognize the true interdependence that we have and the true interconnectedness that we have as the world really unfolds in a human to human contact kind of way. And we're getting to experience that firsthand. So that's where I am today, is really being present to trying to stay in the flow of things. And when I find myself drifting towards the polarity of fear and worry and anxiety, I also notice that I'm typically more in a me-centered frame of mind. When I shift that to think about others, I notice the anxiety dissipates. I notice the fear starts to dissipate, and I notice I come back to some sense of neutrality, and the mind clears, and we start to have access to our creative capacities once again. So maybe transitioning to some music around this choice of things happening to me or things happening for me. I had the pleasure of participating in a songwriters workshop last year with my dear friend Peter, and one of the prompts that he gave us for one of the weeks was to write a song advocating for something that we're strongly opposed to, which I thought was a really creative and interesting challenge. So at this time of the workshop, I was actually deeply in the throes of uh, a major depressive episode coming off the rearranging of our family dynamic. Christine and I ended our marriage, and we've been co-parenting the kiddos for the last year and a half, and that's quite a significant adjustment for everybody. And part of the work in going through an event like that is to really take a close look at how am I cause in the matter, because it doesn't work for me to just put everything on Christine and say the marriage didn't work because it was all her fault. Things go much more smoothly when I recognize that I have cause in every aspect of my life. And so when I take responsibility for that, um, I'm more able to honor the other person, honor the relationship, and really learn about myself and ways that I can continue to become more able to be in harmony with others and in relationship with others. And that is, again, being willing to let go of our need to be right, letting go of our need to be, I'll speak in the first person, letting go of my need to be right, letting go of my need to be liked, all of these things. And so before I get to the music, I'll give a really specific example of this, and it came up um, in our Fully Human at Work cohort this week as well. And that is, we were in the conversation about mindfulness and the benefits of mindfulness. And it's really to be able to sit as the observer and watch what's arising inside me in any given context, and then watch what's arising outside of me coming from another person or in the environment. And I was on a phone call with Christine recently, and we were speaking about the kids' schedule and our schedule with the kids. And at one point, she simply stated her preference about what would work for her. And I noticed in my own inner experience that I automatically wanted to negate the validity of what she was saying. And it occurred to me in that moment, in a way that it never had before, is like, oh my gosh, I have a way of listening to you. I have a way of listening to you, Christine, that always has you wrong. And I had all these unconscious stories about how I'm older and more developed and smart, like all this junk that was clouding my ability to just listen to her preferences, which she is 100% entitled to without being made to feel wrong for having them. And so as I got present to this, I got to share that with her. And it really felt like a gift to, one, like me not be so at the effect of this unhealthy story, um, and way of being, and me always having to be right over my wife. Or so I got to share that with her, and she gets to not be defensive, and like it just clears up so much in our relationship. And so when we're able to really take responsibility for our cause in any given matter, rather than try to project it onto others, all of that stuff is what victim consciousness is, and it's where most of the population lives most of the time, and, self included. So this is the practice. This is what Fully Human at Work for me is really all about. It's how do I do the work on myself such that in any given moment I can really distinguish what's coming up inside of me versus what's coming up outside of me, and how can I meet this with some neutrality and then move forward into a possibility that I'm really committed to creating for myself, for these other people in my life that really matter. Again, it could be a family context, it could be a work context, but we shift to an other orientation or a we orientation, and the rivalrous context diminishes, and the need to be right and the need to be liked and the need to be better than diminishes. And what happens there is we can all relax. And when we can all relax, we can all tune into that which really wants to and needs to emerge in a given context in order to move things forward for the greater good. So, getting back to this invitation of the song that Peter had prompted us with, write a song advocating for something that you're strongly opposed to. What was really present in my mind was a lot of depression, was a lot of anxiety, and associated with that was the realization that my anxiety and my depression are much higher when I am in a me orientation, when I'm in a victim consciousness, making everything about me. So I don't like this. It's not good for me, and it's not good for the people that I love and care about. So I wrote a song advocating for that. And that song is called It's All About Me. So I'm going to play that here for you after a little setup. All right. Mm. Get some more tea here. All right. It's all about me. Stay small if you're falling, four walls, tears bawling. I hate it all, that's why I keep stalling. I dropped the ball, the devil's calling me to claim us all. And I love depression and I love anxiety. My whole obsession is to make it all about me. A true confession that you will come to see. It's all about me. Night falls, I'm crawling, dark halls, blue drawings. I made them all, black holes I keep falling in. I hit the wall, the devil's calling me to claim a soul. I love depression and I love anxiety. My whole obsession is to make it all about me. A true confession that you will come to see. It's all about me. And when I go to bed, the creepy dreams I dread, they seep inside my head. I hope it's not COVID. I love depression and I love anxiety. My whole obsession is to make it all about me. A true confession that you will come to see. It's all about me. It's all about me. My friends, it's all about me. Yes, that is a song about advocating for something I'm strongly opposed to, which is having things be all about me. And so that's the essence of the chat today, really, is in the wake of COVID-19 and in the work that, as best I can tell, that I need to continue to do and that most people I come into contact need to do is, really be able to continue to move from an embodied way of relating to reality from this narrow self-interest or me consciousness, where anything that's other than our preferences in ways of wanting others to be or life to be, is wrong. And we blame them or we're victimized by them. Or we're in some kind of hero mode trying to fix everyone else or everything else that's broken. So the invitation in the wake of the COVID virus and our practice is to choose a different narrative, one that invites us to look at it as things are happening for us, and we get to sail with what is so, and not resist, and not have to row so hard to compel the world or to compel others to conform with our wants and desires all the time. So, with all of that said, I'm going to check out for the evening and wish you all a wonderful night's rest and hope you have a good day on Thursday. And I guess in closing, I'll close with a way, one of my practices, which is anytime I notice that I'm drifting more deeply into a me consciousness or feeling some depression or some anxiety coming on, the practice that I have is to bring my awareness and my attention to my breath and my body, because that gets me into the present moment, because our breath and our body can only always be in the present moment. So that's the first move. The second move is just to try to relax a little bit more. Take some deep breaths, do some adjusting in the body, anything we can do to relax a little bit more. The third step I make is to see if I can befriend what is so a little bit more, whether that be what is so for me, what is so for someone else in front of me, what is so in the environment around me. Can I approach that with a little bit more friendliness? And then the last step is, can I leave some space for mystery or curiosity, or said differently, not knowing? And in that, can I feel held by some of that mystery and held by some of that curiosity as just being in the spaciousness that everything arises from and everything returns to, into that great unknown. So, with all that, I'll bid you good evening, and feel free to reach out, direct message me, check out fullyhumanatwork.com if you're at all interested in that, and send me some ideas of songs you might want to hear, because I'd like to play some more music for everyone, do some originals and some covers going forward. So that's all for tonight. Hope you all have a good evening and safety tomorrow. Be well.